just want to thank everybody for coming today. I know it's Saturdays, it's tough to get away. But I'd like to introduce somebody who's done a lot of work on this issue. They attempted to put a marine sanctuary up in Superior, and Jim was instrumental in educating people and getting that sanctuary stopped. So we're hoping if we can get enough people educated on the issue that we can follow through here as well, along between Ozaki and then upwards to Sheboygan and Manitowoc area. But I'd like to introduce Jim Zeiler, our expert. Thanks.
Thank you, Lori. My name is Jim Zeiler. I'm with Citizens for Responsible Zoning and Landowner Rights. I'd like to thank everybody for coming this afternoon. First, a few ground rules. This is our opportunity to explain what a sanctuary actually is. What has been, the information that's been put forward by NOAA and the proponents is only a portion of the story. Whenever the federal government comes and offers an opportunity, there's always more to the story than what they're telling, and that's what we intend to do today. Please hold your questions until after the presentation. We try to be succinct and brief. A long-winded dissertation doesn't accomplish it. We're going to get out to key points. After I'm finished with the presentation, we'll field whatever questions there are, but please let's have decorum and act like ladies and gentlemen. The first thing I want to ask, who here has read all of the NOAA documents regarding the creation of the Lake Superior Sanctuary? I must be the only one that read the preliminary documents and the draft documents for the environmental impact, the preliminary study, the preliminary findings, and the study area profile. Who here has read 15 CFR 922, where all of the regulations are found for marine sanctuaries? I must be the only guy that read all of that. There's an interesting book by a world-renowned diver, Gary Gentile. He wrote a book, Noah's Ark, where he describes the tactics of Noah. Who here has read this book? I must be the only one that read the book. So to have a full understanding of what this actually involves, you have to take a look at all the information that's available. We call our presentation Lake Michigan National Marine Sanctuary, the rest of the story. When you think of Lake Michigan, you think of the lake. You think of the beautiful picture that was shot by Jane Gore. You know, the uses we normally anticipate or we associate with Lake Michigan. Here's a slide that gives you an orientation as to the lake. Here's Lake Michigan. It's the only Great Lake that is bordered by U.S. states. The other Great Lakes all border with Canada. And those, Superior, Huron, Erie, and Ontario, not only have their state authorities, EPA, the Coast Guard, but they also have the International Joint Commission that deals with the regulation of these other lakes. And NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, not only talks about the sanctuaries, the water, the underwater parks, but controlling the water basin, the watershed area, as portrayed by this outline. Because if they can control the water basin, they can make for cleaner water. So they want to increase their regulation above and beyond the water. NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Here's some pictures of underwater wrecks. The sanctuary bill was originally created back in 1972. It was first referred to as the Ocean Dumping Act. If you remember back then, most of you here are too young, but the oceans were used as dumping grounds. You had too much of this, that, or the other thing, just drive out in the ocean and throw it overboard. Well, they decided that wasn't the best management practice. In the original act of 1972, it talks about preserving the water quality, preserving the creatures that live in the water, and the features of the bottomland, the geography. Never in that original act did it grant NOAA any authority to regulate shipwrecks. The best we can see is NOAA just assumed that authority, nobody objected, and if nobody objects, you run with it. It's called a Lake Michigan sanctuary, even though Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana all border on the lake. They're starting it here in this area. It will later on spread across the entire lake. How did this start? In December of 2014, Scott want to submit a question, you do it on a postcard. They control the information that's shared. Their meetings are next week, Monday through Thursday, in those various locations. The counties we're talking about are Ozaukee, Sheboygan, and Manitowoc. There's some talk about adding Kewaunee, and people in the public sector are calling, well, if you're going to add Kewaunee, add Door County while you're at it. When you read the publicity for the marine sanctuary, they talk about broad-based community support. Well, you know, I have an idea of what broad-based community support is, and when we looked at the initial documentation, you can see it had 9 elected officials, 3 county boards, 4 city governments, and other people with an emotional or a business tie to the lake. Tourism groups, yachting groups, the Maritime Museum, that had an interest in Lake Michigan, more along the lines of emotional ties. I went the other day and looked at it again, and it is slightly over 100 named groups and individuals that have endorsed this program. Yet you look at the state of Wisconsin, NOAA calls this broad-based community support. We're a state of 5.8 million people. We have 72 counties, 190 cities, 402 villages, and over 1,200 towns. Now, to me, that is not the definition when you have those few people involved. That's not broad-based community support. And it appears from what we can find, they never notified the fishing community. The charter fishermen, the commercial fishermen. We are in the process of doing that now. We're not only notifying the Wisconsin fishing interest, but the Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Minnesota commercial and charter fishermen, so they're aware, because this will have an impact on their income and their ability to conduct business. And it might not happen this year or next year, but down the line, NOAA retains that authority to impose the rules and regulations. Here's their 2 plans. This one here is a 3-county plan. Here's a 4-county plan. If you can see, those of you that are closer, there's red marks on the screen, red stars. Those are shipwrecks, known shipwrecks that already are on the National Park Service, National Register of Historic Places. So we have federal involvement from the National Park Service. This is Alternative A, almost 1,100 square miles, and they want to protect 37 shipwrecks and an unknown number of potential shipwrecks. Plan B, which includes Kewaunee County, is 38 shipwrecks. And for that, they need over 1,200 square miles of the lake. And they want to come right up to the shoreline. I thought originally they had talked that they would start it out into the lake. Well, now it's up against the shoreline. Plan A, NOAA needs 29 square miles to protect and guard these shipwrecks. Plan B is 33 square miles to guard shipwrecks. A lot of people say, well, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, to me it doesn't. But that's their plan. They also, in their draft proposal, talk about running the line, not as shown on the maps, let me go back to it, not as shown on the maps, but actually running it all the way out to the boundary with Michigan. At the current time, they're not going to do it, but that thought has already crossed their mind. And what we've seen from looking at other sanctuaries, if the thought crosses their mind, sooner or later it'll come to be reality. To look at and understand what marine sanctuaries imply, you have to look at the Federal Register, 15 CFR 922. It's just tons of boilerplate to read. I've invested a lot of time, we've invested a lot of time reading it and looking to see what the ramifications are and what really happens. Sanctuaries have rules that are written specific to a sanctuary, but there's also general rules that apply to all sanctuaries. If you get a sanctuary designation, these are some of the rules that apply to every one of them. You can't discharge material or matter into the sanctuary. So if you want to dredge a harbor, you can't do that. If you're going to do any dredging out in the sanctuary, you're not allowed to do that. Disturbance, construction, or alteration of the lake bottom. Say you wanted to put Sheboygan wanted to put a water intake pipe out into the lake. Or you wanted to bury cables that are going to go over to Michigan or wherever. You're not allowed to do that. You want to bring an oil pipeline through. You're not allowed to do that. Nothing, no alteration or construction of the seabed. Disturbance of cultural resources. Well, that makes sense. Just to go down and wreck a shipwreck, there's nothing accomplished by that. Disturbance of marine mammals, seabirds, and sea turtles. I've done extensive research and we have yet to find any protections for mermaids, so apparently they've been overlooked in the process. Prohibited in certain areas, use of aircraft, use of drones. They have flight restrictions, you can't fly below a certain level. That's normally the province of the FAA, and like it's been pointed out, how will a federal fishery or a game warden know how high your plane is? So they're moving into areas they have no expertise and should have absolutely no authority, but they're just taking, anytime they can step their jurisdiction forward, they're doing that. You're not allowed to use personal watercraft in some of the sanctuaries. In California, in Monterey Bay, they have zones where you're not allowed to use personal watercraft. And one particular area has, when they get high surf, it's what the surfers look for, those big killer waves, and they do what's called tow-in surfing. I ride on the jet ski and I tow you in for you to get on this big wave. 2 surfers got a ticket for doing this, and they told NOAA, they contested it to the local officer and wanted to take it to court. A NOAA attorney advised them that the fine would go from $500 to the potential of $140,000. Well, needless to say, they lost all interest in contesting the fine. And then to top it off, a few days later, another surfer during the time of high surf got in trouble out there and drowned because there was no personal watercraft available to go out there and attempt a rescue. And NOAA claims the justification for restricting watercraft out in Monterey Bay is preservation of sea otters. Number 6, take your time and let this soak in. Exploring for developing or producing oil, gas, or minerals. What happens if 10, 20, 30 years from now, we find something of value in the lake? There's a mineral, there's a resource, there's something we don't conceive of today. If we accept a marine sanctuary now, that is forever. All of these proposals are forever outlawed. We'll never be able to utilize the lake, no matter how efficient, no matter how we care for the resource. It's just banned. The Chumash Sanctuary off the coast of California, that battle has broken out into the open. You know, here they're arguing shipwrecks. Out there, they're arguing, we don't want to drill for oil, we don't want no oil drilling. The pro or the anti-sanctuary people say, we want to manage our coastline. The anti-drillers say, we want a sanctuary to stop oil drilling. So they're not even trying to hide it under the guise of shipwrecks or sea otters or anything else. So are we prepared to forever take Lake Michigan, remove it from potential development should the opportunity present itself? And if you violate, you can see what the restrictions are. If you violate any of the act, you're subject to fines up to $140,000. And each day constitutes a separate violation. So there's a lot of ramifications, a lot of rules that you're not being told about. This, if you can see the light blue area, that is the original marine sanctuary that was created in Lake Huron. And that process started in the late 90s. In 1997, there was a public vote that NOAA agreed to abide by in the city of Alpena, whether or not to create a sanctuary. The sanctuary proposal was defeated by better than 2-1. And now remember, NOAA said, we'll abide by the vote. After the vote turned out to be significantly against it, they decided to move forward with it anyways. They said the shipwrecks are too valuable and we'll just overwhelm the opposition. You know, as we all know, after a while people just tire out and wear out. So NOAA moved the plan forward. Even though they agreed to abide by the vote, they didn't. They forced their way through. So this was created in the year 2000. 448 square miles. In the year 2012, they decided there's so many more shipwrecks, we have to extend the authority, and that goes all the way out. Here's the border with Canada, the line with Canada. They moved it all the way out. It's now over 4,300 square miles. Once again, to protect shipwrecks. If you cross from Lake Michigan or Lake Superior and come through Mackinac here, you immediately run into it. So that gives NOAA the potential authority to close off or restrict heavy shipping. And the most economical and safest way to move product is with ships. It's the greenest, it's the cheapest way to do it. So NOAA is in a position, and I'm not saying they will, but they have the potential to restrict our use of the lakes. When NOAA sells this to a locale, like they're doing here in Wisconsin, you're going to have an economic boom. You're going to see businesses created. There's going to be jobs developed. Your tourism will go up. Well, NOAA, the Thunder Bay Marine Sanctuary, and several of the involved parties sponsored an economic study by the University of Michigan, the Institute for Research on Labor, Employment, and Economy, and it's called EARLY. They did their study in 2012. Now, mind you, the Thunder Bay Resort had been in existence for 12 years. So University of Michigan did an economic study. And as you can see, the headline, the sanctuary holds untapped concluded its potential is great. Well, after 12 years, shouldn't that potential be realized? They still hadn't realized, and this was a study funded by NOAA and Thunder Bay. So the claims of job creation and economic boom, from what we can find from our own research, it looks like possibly 2 motels, a glass bottom boat, and a couple of coffee shops. The limiting factors on the Great Lakes are what? The weather. The cold, too early in the spring, too late in the fall, and dead of winter, you're not going to go out there to go scuba diving or sightseeing. The glass bottom boat isn't going to go out when the harbor is full of ice. So you're looking at part-time, temporary, low-paying jobs in the service industry, and for that we're going to put at risk the heavy shipping industry, the guys with the real boats, with the big iron boats, the Lakers or the Coasties, the Lakers or the Salties. We're going to put that at risk. And Wisconsin has a boat building industry. NOAA said, we're your friend, we're here to help you, we're here to supplement you. Well, somebody should call Lolo Muliga, the governor of American Samoa. NOAA has been so cooperative, American Samoa filed a federal lawsuit in January of this year claiming that NOAA is abusive and dictatorial. And they not only dictate to American Samoa, they prohibited commercial fishing in areas of the marine sanctuary, and they also placed limits and outlawed subsistence take, where the natives go out for subsistence take. So I think we got to take a second look when NOAA says we're here to help you, we're your friend. Maybe based on the experiences of American Samoa, that's not completely true. If everybody likes a good Easter egg hunt, you wouldn't believe what we went through trying to find the NOAA fishing protocol. We found it, lost the link to it, and then set about trying to reestablish that because it's a confusing 13-page protocol. I called the regional office in Ann Arbor, I called the Thunder Bay Sanctuary, I called the NOAA Fisheries, the guys and ladies with the guns and the badges that enforce fishing rules, and nobody knew what I was talking about. An expert will call me back later, we'll have somebody get hold of you. That never happened. I was able to relocate the NOAA fishing rules, and this is the title page of the booklet. It's a 13-page protocol. Here's the second page. How NOAA will administer regulation of fishing in a sanctuary. I talked to Ellen Brody, she's the regional coordinator out of Ann Arbor. She outranks Russ Green, who's here locally in Sheboygan. And first of all, she said she had no clue what I was talking about, and she would have somebody call me back. Well, I'm still waiting for that call also. And she told me we would never regulate fishing. We just want to protect your shipwrecks. Well, according to this, and I can find nothing to contravene this, they have the authority. And if they have it, they can invoke it at their pleasure. The third page, the executive summary. How NOAA will administer regulation of fishing in the sanctuaries. So whenever they want, they supersede DNR, anybody else, the Indian tribes, and they impose their will. And if they have the authority, sooner or later, maybe 20, 30 years from now, maybe next week, but they have the authority. And they say, well, you can write something in the NOAA rules. Well, I'm not inclined to believe them or take them at face value. And they're selling this that, Lake Michigan is such a rare opportunity. Your shipwrecks here are just so world class. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And then look, here's some nice pretty pictures of the lake environment. Lake Erie. So while they're telling us how wonderful the Wisconsin opportunity is, they're doing the same thing in Lake Erie right now. But there, they went full boat and took it all the way to the Canadian line, rather than just a small one like they're proposing here in Wisconsin, 1,100 or 1,200 square miles. So they're trying Lake Erie. Oh, they're trying Lake Ontario. So they've got sanctuary proposals right now pending in 3 of the Great Lakes. The Lake Superior Sanctuary crashed and sank last year. I made a presentation to the Red Cliff tribe, and shortly thereafter they publicly announced they were opposed to it. And the petition that emanates from local groups was withdrawn, dropping the proposals at least temporarily. So when they're telling us how rare this is, maybe it's not all that rare. Then if you keep looking, they're trying off what's called the Baltimore Canyon. They're trying one off New Jersey and New York called the Hudson Canyon. They're doing the Chumash Sanctuary off the coast of Central California. They've had several other ones defeated, but it's almost like a frantic grab. They're racing to grab as much water as they can. And I don't know if I've convinced you that maybe there's different motives for having these marine sanctuaries, but here I'll quote, existing legislation allows the Secretary of Commerce to protect certain estuarine and ocean resources from the ill effects of development by designating marine sanctuaries. Instructing the Secretary of Commerce to identify possible sanctuaries in the areas where development appears imminent and to begin collecting the data to designate them as such under the law. Close quote. I mean, that's fairly clear cut. The ill effects of development, if development appears imminent, quick, bring me a sanctuary. May 23rd, 1977, President Jimmy Carter, in his environment message to Congress. I feel confident in saying that marine sanctuaries are intended, the true intent is to block development of the lake or the water. What do we do next? NOAA is having their scoping meetings next week, where they're controlling the environment to push their plan forward. They're accepting comments on the gov.portal, where you can go on there, type in the docket, and make your comments regarding the sanctuary. Right now, it has quite a few comments from people that are in favor of it. The other way is to mail to Russ Green. He's the local coordinator. He's here in Sheboygan somewhere. So it's critical that people share their thoughts with NOAA and with Russ Green, how we feel about this. Is this really something that we want for the good of the people in the entire state of Wisconsin? Here's links to some of the articles, their plans, their preliminary findings, the draft environmental statement, study area profile. And when we were discussing broad-based community support, in late 2015, the 4 cities issued a joint press release, and Mayor Nichols of Manitowoc said, the sanctuary is such a victory for Wisconsin, the whole state should celebrate. Well, I think Mayor Nichols' comments opened a door. He recognizes this is going to have statewide impact. Well, then, if it's going to have statewide impact, shouldn't everybody in the state, the 72 counties, the legislators, everybody have input into this process? And we're of the opinion, based on his comments, that this process should be stopped, restarted as a statewide discussion, rather than just a few communities determining the future of Lake Michigan. Because once they get there, their history is enlarging them and taking more water. In their draft environmental plan, they already talk about running it out to the line with Michigan. Michigan also has shipwrecks. Chicago, Illinois has shipwrecks. So this should be a conversation for the whole state. I'll leave that screen up. That's basically the presentation, what it is. We have to be aware of it and formulate a plan that's going to raise some serious questions. And let's have a new debate over this. When we've talked about debates on heritage areas, the proponents always dismiss it as unwieldy, too time consuming. You invite too many people in to talk about the issue. Well, isn't that what we're supposed to do? Don't you want town hall meetings, let everybody come in and have a debate rather than a controlled setting where only one side gets to promote their views? And what these sanctuaries are, just like heritage areas or national parks, it's the elite and the radical environmentalists using federal law and tax dollars to promote their view of the environment or their view of tourism. And if we're going to take this lake away from the best uses, well, we all want clean water. We all want clean air, so that debate doesn't carry any weight. Let's have the whole state of Wisconsin participate in this, and let's have the legislature decide what they want. So does anybody have any questions?
Once they establish, if they get that through, what does it take to end it? can't they?
No. Once a sanctuary is established, what does it take to end it? There's no provision for ending it. Once it's here, everything is forever. So once we allow it in, it doesn't have a sunset provision. You know, it will sunset, but the sanctuary won't. So that's the scary part. There's no end of it.
Why did Walker sign on to this?
Well, based on why did Walker sign on to the proposal? Why was he the key signatory to it in December of 14? It was political pressure out of Ozaukee, Sheboygan, and Manitowoc counties. And he succumbed to that pressure, that's why he endorsed it. His staff, I called and asked who was the sanctuary expert. Their response was, nobody, we don't know nothing about it. He signed it due to political pressure.